Trade dress, on the other hand, is sort of how something looks, like the theme of a restaurant, for example. That's what trade dress really is, and it can be protected.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, I'm going to throw a new term at you. I bet you don't know about it, but you should. You need to know about it. It's called trade dress. And here to explain more is Kristen Roberts, a noted IP attorney from the West Coast in California. Kristen, it's great to have you on the show. So what is trade dress and why should I care?
Well, trade dress is a method of protecting your intellectual property. It's another method. Trade dress effectively describes your look, your aesthetic, the look and the feel of something. So it's not going to be your trademark, which is your name, your brand, your symbol that you use to identify yourself to the public and what goods and services you sell. Trade dress, on the other hand, is sort of how something looks, like the theme of a restaurant, for example. That's what trade dress really is, and it can be protected.
All right. So I'm thinking, like, if I wanted to start my own hot dog line and I come up with an Oscar Mayer wiener looking mobile, but I call it Kerry's Dogs, but it looks exactly the same other than the name, that could be a violation of trade dress there, huh?
Potentially, yeah, potentially, depending on whether or not the Oscar Mayer wiener is protected by trademark as well. But yes, overall, that can be it. I usually think of trade dress like when you go into a restaurant, like, for example, Taco Bell, for example. You go into a Taco Bell and you know what to expect when you walk into that Taco Bell because they all look a certain way. They all have a certain feel, or like an In-N-Out burger, for example. They all have those red stripes and the palm trees, and you go inside and there's the color, the aesthetic. That's the trade dress.
Right. So I think of like you go into CVS and they have their house brand, or you go into supermarkets, they have their house brand. And if you didn't look at the name, you might not even know, and you just grab the cheaper one, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's actually also, those are trademarks, right? So their house marks are protected under trademark, and trade dress is protected in a very similar way as a trademark would be.
But like in China, they knock off these cars and you can't tell a BMW from their ZNW or whatever. But in China, they don't really enforce foreign intellectual property very effectively. In fact, they don't even care about it.
Well, in China, for example, they have their own intellectual property system. And unfortunately, our trademark, trade dress, intellectual property rights in the United States, they only protect us within the United States borders. So if you want your stuff protected in other countries, you actually have to go to those countries and register and protect them there.
Right. So, but it's a slippery slope. Where does it end is what I'm thinking. Like, because so many things fall into this, because we're all trying to brand, we're all trying to do our own identity. So if another lawyer kind of started knocking off your trade dress on your website and everything else, and his name was Chris Roberts, you might have a case against him. It seems like it's too hard to define and too hard to say who's violating it, because you might do it a little bit, but not enough. It requires like a judgment maybe that courts really aren't designed to handle, to really deal with, right?
Well, not necessarily. There actually have been cases where courts have been able to, enforce and affirm a company's trade dress rights. The ones I can think of off the top of my head would be Taco Cabana. They're a really famous chain in Texas. They're like a Tex-Mex chain. And their case went all the way to the Supreme Court because they were saying, hey, this other restaurant is taking the colors and the aesthetic and the decor, and they're trying to apply it in the same way. And it's confusing people into thinking that they're related to us in some way. And the court was able to say, yeah, that's protectable because it is so unique But I think where we run into issues is where the trade dress is maybe on the line, where it's not super unique, where it's something that a lot of people are using or doing. And then someone says, well, I invented that. That's mine. That's really where you start to run into those issues of, well, is it on the line? Is it too close? And how do we decide?
Yeah, that is a really good question, because it's like it's a question of degree almost rather than of kind, because, like food in the supermarket, the most eye-catching colors are red and yellow and orange. So once you start with this, I don't know, I just see issues with it. So it's got to be an out-and-out theft for the courts to really, they're going to want to step in, right?
Well, it needs to be brought by somebody who believes that there's been an out-and-out theft, and then they have to present it in a way that is reasonable to a court. So when a court looks at it, they agree. I think if there are just a few items that are taken, that's a lot harder to prove. Now, if those items that are taken are really unique items, for example, the Chippendales dancers, they have pretty well-known trade dress. Those little bow ties and those little cuffs.
Trade uncuffs there.
Exactly. But those are actually registered trade dress with the United States Patent Mark Office. But they had to really fight to get that protected as trade dress, because how are you going to say a bow tie and cuffs are recognizable? But because they'd been using them for so long, and everybody sees that on one of those dancers, they automatically associate it with the Chippendales brand. And so because of that, it is protectable, and it would be something. So even though they're small things, they're little pieces, they are still considered as part of the trade dress, and thus protectable if they needed to bring a lawsuit.
Okay. So this is an emerging field of the law. What's your gut feel? How far will the court go to protect trade dress?
Well, we have a really interesting case right now between two social media influencers that's pending in Texas. It's still, we still don't know how the case is going to unfold. But I think that this is a really interesting case, because this is the first time we've seen this trade dress argument applied to the aesthetic of a social media page. This creator is alleging that her cream and beige aesthetic is being stolen by another creator on top of copyright infringement claims. So they're stacking the arguments. But the main one is, hey, she's stealing my vibe. And right now, cream and beige, a lot of people use cream and beige. So if this were to go as far as this creator is trying to take it, I think it can have some pretty serious ramifications, because a lot of the creator community is based on an inspiration, is based on sort of taking from things that we see from others and making it our own. And that could really sort of stymie that.
Yeah, it just reminds me of law school. We learned hard cases make bad law, right?
Listen, that is true.
So it's going to be interesting to see. So we're just in the preliminary phases. They're in discovery now. I guess
I don't even think they've answered the lawsuit yet. I think they were given an extension of time to answer, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that this was filed back in early summer of this year. So this is a very, very new case that will unfold. Chances are it may settle. Most of these cases do. But, if it were to go all the way, it could really set some interesting precedent. I do think that there's a problem with going too broad in this type of a case, because we don't want to chill speech. We don't want people to stop being creative with the fear that they'll get sued.
And probably in this case, strategic lawsuit just to get her to stop. And it's like a lot of people will look at a lawsuit and say, I don't need this. I'll change to blue and red. And and let the political parties come after me for violating their trade dress, right? We'll do red, white, and blue. You're pretty safe with that. So,
America aesthetic. Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is like Rolex watches, when I was thinking about this, they have different colored dials. And one is called a Pepsi, another's a Coca-Cola, another's a Kermit the Frog. It's green. So all of a sudden, once you start, and those are nicknames, they aren't official Rolex names for the watches, but, where does it end? Well, hey, people want to find out more about you, Kristen, connect with you on the web. How do you do that?
Well, I'm on all social media platforms. If anyone wants to find me, at Trestle Law, the spelling's right there if they need to see it. And I'm also on my website, trestleslaw.com. You can find me anywhere. Always drop me a line, ask me questions. I like to share videos and be on social as well.
Great. Well, hey, if you've been a victim of trade dress appropriation, I guess, for lack of a better term, infringement, then you'll want to talk to Kristen. Her law firm's link is in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. While you're there, sign up for your free newsletter. Question for Kristen or myself. I am a recovering attorney after all. Just shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Kristen, thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.